Good day. Welcome to this lecture series in Godot.
Hello, good day, welcome back. In this video, we will implement the lives functionality of the player. So we will start with 3 lives, but every time we touch an enemy, we will lose a life. And when we touch enough enemies, we die and the game will be over. So let's go ahead and get started. So obviously, we want must show here, let's play. You have the player here moving. You can shoot the rockets, and the rockets can hit the enemy. But we want the enemy to hit the player, and we can lose a life. So the player will have 3 lives. So to do this, the player needs to detect when it's colliding with the enemy. So to do that, we need to go to the enemy scene. So we are in 2D, go to enemy. So we are in the enemy scene here. So because the enemy, when we put the signals, is an area 2D, it has all these useful signals that we can use. Because the player is a character body, we need to use the body entered signal of the enemy player. Character body, see it's a character body there. So what I will do, I will have the enemy here. So the enemy is an area 2D. I will go to the body entered. You'll click here. You can click connect. So rather than double clicking, this time you can just click connect. And you can click connect here. So inside of this body enter, we want to apply damage to the player. Let's clean up this a bit. So we have this body argument here. This will be from the player because we know from the enemy's collision layers, back to inspector, we know that the enemy is checking for the player. The player is here on the mask. The enemy is checking for other things, but the only player is a physics body that the enemy is checking for. So we can be sure that this body will be the player. So we'll type body dot take damage. This take damage is a function that we will create in a while, but this doesn't exist right about now. We first want to apply damage to the player. Next, we want to destroy the enemy. So to destroy the enemy, you could apply the die function. That's the die function we created here with the Q3. Now let's create this take damage function in the player script. So I press Ctrl S to save. This is the player script. So I'll scroll down, come down, create a new function, take damage. FUNC, take damage. Hold on. To test to see if this is working, you will print something. So you we come in with the commas and you type in player took damage. So this is a string we are writing inside here. You can test this. Let's see the output here. Player took damage, so we know this is working. So the next step is to create some kind of variable that will keep track of how many lives that the player has left. And we are going to keep track of that inside of the game script. So put a game script right here. So because the game scene is the main scene in which everything else exists and it is really the main scene that everything else is contained in, then from the game scene it has access to all the things that are inside of the game. So let's go to 2D. It has access to everything here. It has access to the background, the player, the rocket, and the spawner, the death zone, etc. So we'll go back to script. We'll go to the game script. We'll create a new variable and for the variable lives. So it suffered for 3 lives. So now we have an issue or a minor problem. The lives is inside of the game script, but the player take damage, this take damage function here, is inside of the player script, player 3D script. So how can we connect these two together? We want the game script to react to a change in the player script. Now, normally we will do this with a signal, but there is no signal for this. The good news is that Godot allows us to create our own custom signals. Now, these signals work just like the default signals that we have here. The only issue is that we have to define them for ourselves. So we are in player script, go to the top, and you'll create a new signal. Um, Come to here, type signal. After the signal, we will give a name to the signal, and it will be, in this case, to be took damage. So the next step after we have created this signal is to emit this signal. So we'll go down here by the take damage. So instead of writing player took damage, we'll emit the signal, emit signals, 0 thoughts have just here. So you can see here this really acts as file name for the signal, and you can type took, see you get it here, took damage. So this line here will emit the signal when a take damage function is called. So after this point, we can use this signal just like any other signal in Godot. So press Ctrl S and C. So now if you go to the scene and go to the player scene, you have this node selected, and if you go across here to signals, you can now see this took damage signal is appearing here. So now we can connect this signal to the game script, and of course you could subtract whatever lives you want to subtract. So what we'll do, we'll go to the game scene. We are in scene mode. We'll select the player. We'll select this took damage. We can click connect here. We can just double click here, and then you can just click connect. You see it sends us to this here. So this will connect the player took damage to the game script. So we are in the game script. Note rather having just player, I have player 1 took damage. So I have player 1 here, but nevertheless this will work. So what we'll do, we'll type lives minus equal 1. So this will be lives. I had live just now. This will subtract 1 from the lives. Then we can print the lives to see how many lives that we have left. So we can test this. We have the player here, shoot, shoot, shoot. Right. Die once. You can see the lives here is now 2. Lives now is one, now 1. Now life is 0. Now it's going to -1. Now going to -2. So this is working, but we need to put in some more work. Why? Because we want to give the game to be over when the player lives has reached to 0. So in other words, when you have no more lives, it's supposed to mark game over, and it's supposed to restart. So now here it's like if lives are equal to, so this double equal checks to see if the left hand side is equal to the right hand side. So if lives are equal to 0, then this if statement will be executed. So print Clean up this is unnecessary, and this is unnecessary now. So let me preference the player. One var, so create a variable player, which is put a player one here. So we can have player, or we can create you run a die function. So let me call, well, of course we don't have the die function yet, but we can create one for the player as well. So let's go to the player script and create a die function. And this function will just have Q3 for now, but in the future I can put more stuff. Let's control S and save. We can also go to the game script here. We can also put this lives, this if statement here in brackets. And we can create an else. So back here and create else. Hold on. Alright. Press Control S, we save. Let's test this. We are in the game script. It's supposed to start up with 3 lives. 1, so we're now down to 2. Down to 1. We died, the player disappeared, so the player is destroyed, and we see this print here, game over. So this is working. So we achieved the objectives for this video, so I'll end this lecture here. Thank you.